and I'm Eva, 34 years old, an interior designer from Boston. My birthday celebration turned into a living nightmare. After years of hard work and saving, my husband Marcus and I bought our dream home. What should have been a joyful milestone became a battleground when my in-laws, the Caldwells, arrived and declared my new home was family property. I stood on my own lawn, humiliated and betrayed, but they had no idea what I was capable of. Before I share how I turned the tables on my manipulative in-laws, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a story about standing up for yourself when others try to take what's rightfully yours. Growing up in a middle-class family in Boston taught me the value of hard work. My parents, both teachers, instilled in me the belief that anything worth having required effort and persistence. We weren't poor, but luxuries were earned, not given. I learned to save for what I wanted and appreciate what I had. By my late 20s, I had established myself as an interior designer with a growing reputation for transforming ordinary spaces into personalized sanctuaries. I worked long hours, often taking on additional clients to build my portfolio and savings. My dream was to one day own my own design studio. But first, I wanted to create the perfect home as my personal showcase. I met Marcus Caldwell at a charity auction 6 years ago. I was there representing the design firm I worked for, which had donated a free home consultation package. Marcus was on the organizing committee representing his family's real estate development company. Tall, with dark wavy hair and a charismatic smile, he approached me after noticing I had bid on a rare art book. "You have excellent taste," he said, introducing himself. That book is considered the Bible of contemporary interior architecture. Our conversation flowed effortlessly from design philosophies to favorite buildings to childhood memories. By the end of the evening, we had exchanged numbers and I felt the butterflies of new possibility. Our romance moved quickly. Marcus was attentive, thoughtful, and seemed genuinely interested in my work and ambitions. Within a month, we were dating exclusively. After 6 months, he introduced me to his family, the Caldwells. The Caldwells lived in a sprawling colonial in Brookline, a prestigious Boston suburb. From the moment I entered their home, I sensed I was being evaluated. Richard Caldwell, a tall, distinguished man with silver temples, shook my hand firmly while maintaining unwavering eye contact. Barbara Caldwell, impeccably dressed with perfectly coiffed blonde hair, offered a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "So you're the interior designer," Barbara said, emphasizing my profession in a way that made it sound like a hobby rather than a career. "How lovely that you have something creative to occupy your time." Marcus's sister Rachel and her husband Douglas were also present. Rachel seemed pleasant enough, if somewhat reserved, while Douglas barely acknowledged me, instead engaging Marcus in conversation about the family business. Despite the subtle tension, the evening proceeded smoothly. The Caldwells were educated, well-traveled, and maintained immaculate manners. They asked appropriate questions about my background and work, though I noticed they changed the subject whenever I mentioned my family. "Eva's father is a professor of literature at Boston University," Marcus proudly stated at one point. "How interesting," Richard replied, before immediately turning the conversation to a recent gallery opening he had attended. It was subtle, but I noted the deflection. After dinner, while the men retired to Richard's study for brandy, Barbara gave me a tour of their home. "This painting is an original Sargent," she said, gesturing to a portrait in the hallway. "It's been in the Caldwell family for generations. We believe in preserving our heritage and keeping valuable things in the family." The statement seemed innocent enough at the time, but looking back, it was the first hint of the Caldwells' possessive nature. Despite these small red flags, I fell deeply in love with Marcus. He proposed after a year of dating, presenting me with a vintage emerald ring that had belonged to his grandmother. "My mother wanted me to give this to the woman I would spend my life with," he explained as he slipped it onto my finger. "Family traditions are important to us." We married in a lavish ceremony paid for by the Caldwells. My parents, uncomfortable with the extravagance, but wanting me to be happy, contributed what they could. Throughout the planning process, Barbara inserted herself repeatedly, often overriding my preferences. "Darling Caldwell brides always carry white peonies, not lilies," she would say, or "We always use the family silver for the reception." Marcus always mediated these conflicts with the same refrain: "It's easier to go along with Mom on these things, Eva. It means so much to her." After our honeymoon, we moved into a luxury apartment in Back Bay, not far from the Caldwell family home. The apartment was beautiful but temporary in my mind. I continued working and building my client base, saving diligently for our future home. The first 2 years of marriage were largely happy. Marcus worked at his family's company, and I expanded my design business. We enjoyed traveling, trying new restaurants, and hosting small dinner parties. However, family dinners at the Caldwells remained a source of tension. Barbara frequently made comments about when we would start a family. "The Caldwell name needs to continue, and you're not getting any younger either," she would say, ignoring the fact that I had expressed wanting to establish my career first. Richard would question Marcus about business decisions, often implying he should be more aggressive in his approach. "Your grandfather built this company by taking risks, son. You seem too content to maintain rather than grow." I noticed how Marcus's demeanor changed around his parents. The confident, supportive man I knew became deferential and eager to please. He rarely contradicted them and often apologized for their behavior to me in private, rather than addressing it directly. As our 5th anniversary approached, our conversations about buying a home intensified. We had been saving diligently, with me contributing a larger portion from my growing business. Marcus and I had different visions for our home. He preferred modern minimalist spaces with clean lines and sparse furnishings. I dreamed of a home with character and history that I could infuse with contemporary elements, a canvas for my design skills. "The right home is an investment in our future," I told Marcus. "Not just financially, but as a foundation for the family we might build." He agreed in principle, but seemed hesitant to commit to anything specific. In retrospect, his reluctance should have been another warning sign. By the time my 34th birthday approached, I had a substantial savings account, earmarked for a home down payment. Marcus and I had been casually looking at properties for months, but nothing had felt right. I was determined that this would be the year we finally found our perfect home. Little did I know that my birthday would become not a celebration of another year of life, but a painful awakening to the true nature of the family I had married into. Our house hunting journey began in earnest 3 months before my birthday. Every weekend we would visit open houses and private showings, evaluating each property against our growing list of requirements. "This kitchen is too small," Marcus would say at one house. "The neighborhood doesn't have the right feel," I would comment at another. We bickered over priorities. Marcus focused on investment potential and resale value, while I prioritized character and potential for transformation. His practical approach often clashed with my creative vision. After weeks of disappointments, our realtor Jennifer called with excitement in her voice. "I have a property that just hit the market this morning," she said. "It's a 1920s Tudor revival in Newton. Needs work but has incredible bones. You need to see it today before it's gone." We toured the house that afternoon. From the moment I stepped onto the herringbone brick path leading to the arched front door, I felt a connection. The house had clearly been neglected by its previous owners, who had lived there for over 30 years. The wallpaper was peeling, the kitchen was outdated, and the bathrooms needed complete renovation. But the bones were spectacular. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, hardwood floors throughout original leaded glass windows, and a stunning brick fireplace in the living room. "Look at these ceiling beams," I whispered to Marcus as we walked through the living room. "And the built-in bookshelves. You can't find craftsmanship like this anymore." While I saw potential in every corner, Marcus focused on the problems. "The roof probably needs replacing," he muttered. "And that's old knob and tube wiring, I bet. That's a fire hazard." Jennifer confirmed some of his concerns, but emphasized the house's solid foundation and desirable location. "Properties in this neighborhood sell for 20% above asking once renovated," she noted. "It's a fantastic investment opportunity with the right vision." As we toured the backyard, which featured mature oak trees and a neglected garden, I tugged Marcus aside. "This is it," I said firmly. "This is our home. I can feel it." Marcus looked skeptical. "It's going to cost a fortune to renovate Eva. We'd be house poor for years." "I have the skills to transform this place," I countered. "I can do a lot of the design work myself, and I have contacts with reliable contractors who give me professional discounts. Plus my business is doing well. We can afford this." After much discussion and a second viewing the next day, Marcus reluctantly agreed to make an offer. The asking price was at the top of our budget, leaving little immediate room for renovations, but I was confident we could transform the house gradually. Our offer was accepted the following day, beating out 2 other bidders because we were willing to close quickly. I was elated already, mentally designing each room. The mortgage approval process was stressful. Despite my substantial savings and good credit, the bank required additional documentation because I was self-employed. Marcus's stable income from the family business helped, but I contributed 70% of the down payment from my personal savings. Your name will be on the deed too, right? I confirmed with Marcus as we reviewed the paperwork. Even though I'm putting in most of the down payment, of course, he assured me. We're in this together. I spent hours researching period-appropriate renovations and creating design boards for each room. I envisioned a kitchen with custom cabinetry and marble countertops, bathrooms with vintage-inspired fixtures and contemporary comforts, and a master bedroom that would serve as a peaceful retreat. The dining room would be perfect for entertaining, I told Marcus, showing him my sketches. We could host family holidays here instead of always going to your parents' place. A strange expression crossed his face at that suggestion, but he quickly smiled and agreed. It would be nice to start our own traditions. As the closing date approached, Marcus suggested we keep the house purchase a secret from both our families. Let's surprise everyone, he proposed. We can invite them over for a housewarming after we close. The idea appealed to me particularly since the closing date was just 3 days before my birthday. We could combine it with my birthday dinner, I suggested. What a perfect way to celebrate. Marcus seemed hesitant, but eventually agreed. Just a small gathering though. Right, your parents, my family, maybe a couple of close friends. The day we closed on the house was one of the happiest of my life. Signing the final papers and receiving the keys felt monumental, the culmination of years of hard work and saving. I took pictures of Marcus holding the keys in front of our new front door, both of us beaming with excitement. To our new beginning, I said, kissing him on the porch of our new home. For the next 3 days, I worked tirelessly to prepare the house for our guests. Though we couldn't address any major renovations yet, I wanted to make the space feel welcoming. I cleaned thoroughly, brought in some of our furniture from the apartment, and decorated with fresh flowers and candles. I set up our bed in the master bedroom and arranged a beautiful tablescape in the dining room using my grandmother's china. The morning of my birthday, I woke up in our new home for the first time. Sunlight filtered through the leaded glass windows, casting patterns on the hardwood floor. Marcus brought me coffee in bed and presented me with a small velvet box. "Happy birthday, my love," he said, kissing me softly. Inside was a beautiful sapphire pendant on a delicate gold chain. "It matches your eyes," he said as he fastened it around my neck. "It's perfect," I replied, touching it gently. "Just like our new home." I spent the day preparing for the dinner party, marinating chicken, chopping vegetables, and baking my mother's famous chocolate cake. Marcus seemed unusually quiet, checking his phone frequently, and disappearing for long work calls that left him looking tense. "Is everything okay?" I asked after his third mysterious call. "Just some issues at the office," he said dismissively. "Nothing for you to worry about on your birthday." My best friend Alicia arrived early to help with final preparations. As we arranged flowers and set the table, she noticed my concerned glances toward Marcus. "Everything good with you two?" she asked quietly. "I think he's just stressed about the house," I replied. "It was a big financial commitment." Alicia frowned slightly. "Have his parents seen the place yet?" "No, they're coming tonight. It's a surprise for everyone." "And how do you think they'll react?" "They strike me as the type who like to control things." I brushed off her concern. "They'll be happy for us. This is a huge step forward." But as I said those words, I remembered Barbara's comment when we announced our engagement. "Well, I suppose we'll need to start including Eva in the family discussions about property and investments now." At the time, I had taken it as acceptance. Now standing in my new kitchen, I wondered if there had been another meaning entirely. The sun was setting as I put the finishing touches on our dining room table. Crystal glasses caught the light from the vintage chandelier I'd carefully cleaned, and the floral centerpiece of burgundy dahlias and eucalyptus added an elegant touch to the setting. I'd placed candles throughout the first floor, their warm glow softening the empty corners where furniture would eventually go. "It looks beautiful," Alicia said, adjusting one of the place cards. "No one would guess you just moved in 3 days ago." I smiled, feeling a mixture of pride and nervous anticipation. I want everything to be perfect when we tell them this is our new home. Marcus had spent most of the afternoon in what would become his home office, supposedly handling work emails. When he emerged, he looked tense, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "The table looks great," he said, kissing my cheek perfunctorily. "What time is everyone arriving again?" 7:30, I replied. "Your parents, Rachel and Douglas, my parents and Alicia and her husband James. Just a small celebration." Marcus nodded, then glanced at his watch. "I'm going to take a quick shower before they get here." As he headed upstairs, his phone buzzed with a text message on the kitchen counter. I wasn't in the habit of checking his messages, but the preview caught my eye. "Dad, remember what we discussed? Stay calm and follow the plan. A knot formed in my stomach. What plan? Before I could consider it further, the doorbell rang a full 45 minutes early. That's strange, I said to Alicia. No one should be here yet. I opened the door to find Richard and Barbara Caldwell on my doorstep, both impeccably dressed as always. Barbara wore an expensive-looking navy dress with a pearl necklace, while Richard was in a tailored grey suit. Surprise, Barbara said, her smile tight. We thought we'd come early to help set up. Since Marcus said it was a special announcement, we assumed you might need an extra hand. I masked my confusion with a welcoming smile. That's very thoughtful. Please come in. As they stepped into the foyer, I watched their eyes catalogue every detail of the house. Barbara's gaze lingered on the original crown moulding and hardwood floors, while Richard seemed to be mentally calculating square footage and property value. Charming, Barbara said in a tone that suggested the opposite. Whose home is this again? Marcus wasn't clear on the phone. Before I could answer, Marcus appeared on the stairs, his hair still damp from the shower. His eyes widened slightly at the sight of his parents. Mom, Dad, you're early, he said, coming down to greet them with stiff hugs. We were eager to see what this big surprise was about, Richard replied, clapping Marcus on the shoulder with more force than necessary. You've been quite mysterious lately, son. An uncomfortable silence fell over the group until Alicia stepped forward, introducing herself. I'm Alicia Eva's friend. We were just finishing up the preparations for dinner. I see, Barbara said, giving Alicia a dismissive once-over. Well, I brought a bottle of champagne. Where shall I put it? The kitchen is this way, I said, leading them through the house. As we walked, I couldn't help but notice the silent communication happening between Marcus and his parents. Exchanged glances, subtle nods, and tightened lips. My stomach knotted further. The doorbell rang again, and this time it was Rachel and Douglas also early. Mum texted us to come now, Rachel explained with an apologetic smile. She said there was some sort of situation. My heart rate accelerated. A situation. What was happening? Within the next 20 minutes, my parents arrived right on time. My mother brought a bouquet of my favourite flowers and a small wrapped gift. The contrast between their warm, genuine greetings and the Caldwell's tense civility couldn't have been more stark. The house is beautiful, whoever it belongs to, my mother said, squeezing my hand knowingly. She always could read me like a book. Thanks, Mom, I whispered back. As Alicia's husband James arrived completing our party, I suggested we move to the dining room for dinner. Everyone took their assigned seats with the Caldwells on one side of the table and my family on the other. The physical division seemed symbolic of the invisible tension filling the room. I served the first course, a butternut squash soup that had been my grandmother's recipe. As everyone began eating, Barbara cleared her throat. So Eva, Marcus tells us you have an announcement to make tonight. Something about your birthday and a surprise. All eyes turned to me. This wasn't how I'd planned the reveal, but I decided to embrace the moment. Yes, I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the strange atmosphere. Marcus and I have some exciting news to share. I looked to Marcus for support, but he was staring intently at his soup bowl. Taking a deep breath, I continued alone. As you may have guessed, this isn't just a random house we've borrowed for my birthday dinner. This is our new home. Marcus and I closed on it 3 days ago. I waited for the congratulations, the excited questions, the requests for a tour. Instead, silence descended on the table. My parents exchanged confused glances, clearly sensing something was wrong. Alicia reached under the table and squeezed my knee supportively. Finally, Richard set down his spoon with a precise movement. Your new home. How interesting. Marcus didn't mention anything about finalizing a purchase. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. I was waiting for the right moment, Dad. I see, Richard replied, his tone measured. And the financing for this purchase, how did that work exactly? The question seemed inappropriate for a dinner party, but I answered honestly. We've both been saving. I put down 70% of the down payment from my design business earnings, and Marcus contributed the rest. Barbara's eyebrows shot up. 70%? That's quite a disparity. Eva's business has been doing very well, Marcus said defensively, and we agreed this location made sense for her client base. Richard nodded slowly, then exchanged a look with Barbara that sent chills down my spine. Perhaps now would be a good time to discuss the family situation, Marcus, Richard said. Marcus's face paled. Dad, not now. We're celebrating Eva's birthday. On the contrary, Barbara interjected. This is precisely the right time before any misunderstandings become entrenched. My father, sensing the shifting mood, spoke up. What family situation are you referring to, Richard? Richard straightened in his chair, assuming what I'd come to recognize as his business posture. Well, you see, there's something Eva may not fully understand about how the Caldwell family operates regarding property acquisition. The knot in my stomach tightened. What do you mean? Richard reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a folded document. Marcus didn't actually contribute his portion of the down payment from his personal savings. He accessed the Caldwell family trust for those funds. My confusion must have been evident because Barbara jumped in with false sweetness. What Richard is trying to explain, dear, is that any property purchased with family trust money becomes family property. It's how we've maintained the Caldwell estate for generations. I looked at Marcus, waiting for him to contradict this absurd statement. When he remained silent, staring at his plate, my birthday dinner suddenly felt like a nightmare. That's ridiculous, I said finally. We bought this house together. My name is on the deed. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus wouldn't meet my eyes. Marcus? I prompted, my voice rising slightly. Tell them my name is on the deed. When he finally looked up, the guilt in his eyes told me everything before he even spoke. There was an issue with the paperwork. The lawyer is fixing it, but currently, it's just in my name. The room began to spin. You promised me, I whispered. Richard continued as if I hadn't spoken. As I was saying, properties acquired with trust funds are considered Caldwell family assets. We have certain expectations about how they're used and maintained. Barbara nodded enthusiastically. For instance, we always host the family Thanksgiving and Christmas gatherings. The guest bedroom on the first floor would be perfect for Richard's mother when she visits from Florida. And Rachel and Douglas have been considering moving closer to the family, so the in-law suite potential in the basement would be ideal for them temporarily. Rachel at least had the decency to look embarrassed. Mum, we never agreed to that. Nonsense, Barbara waved dismissively. Family helps family. That's the Caldwell way. I felt as though I'd been dropped into some bizarre alternate reality. This is our home, I said firmly. Marcus and I will decide how it's used. Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. Ava, I don't think you understand how family wealth works. The trust money comes with conditions. Marcus was aware of this when he accessed the funds. I turned to Marcus, betrayal coursing through me. You knew about this. You knew they would claim our house as family property. His silence was answer enough. I think there's been a misunderstanding, my mother interjected diplomatically. Eva contributed the majority of the down payment. Surely that counts for something. Richard barely glanced at her. The legal documentation lists Marcus as the sole owner with funds from the Caldwell Trust. Eva's contribution is essentially a gift to the family estate. The room was spinning faster now. My birthday cake sat untouched on the sideboard. The candles I'd carefully arranged now seeming like a pathetic attempt at celebration. This can't be legal, I said, my voice shaking. I assure you it is, Richard replied smoothly. Our family lawyers have structured things quite carefully. Barbara reached across the table as if to pat my hand, but I pulled away. Consider this your birthday gift, Eva, she said with sickening sweetness. Being included in the Caldwell family property portfolio is quite an honor. Many would be grateful for such security. In that moment, looking at her self-satisfied smile, something inside me snapped. Get out, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Barbara blinked clearly, not expecting resistance. Excuse me. I said, get out. All of you. Now. I stood up, my dinner napkin falling to the floor. Ava, please. Marcus started finally finding his voice. Let's discuss this rationally. Rationally? I laughed, the sound brittle even to my own ears. You let me pour my life savings into this house without telling me your parents would claim ownership rights. There's nothing rational about this betrayal. Richard stood, straightening his tie. I think you're overreacting, Eva. This is simply how family wealth is managed. This isn't your family wealth, I snapped. This is my hard-earned money, my dream home that I found that I plan to renovate with my professional skills. Our home, Marcus corrected weakly. Is it? I turned to him, fury building. Because according to your father, it's a Caldwell family asset. Which is it, Marcus? He looked helplessly between me and his parents. It's complicated, Eva. Actually, it's very simple, I replied, moving toward the front door and pulling it open. This dinner is over. Please leave my house. Barbara gasped dramatically. You cannot throw us out of family property. Richard, say something. Richard's face darkened. Eva, you're making a serious mistake. Marcus, control your wife. That patriarchal command was the final straw. Marcus doesn't control me, and neither do you. This is my home, paid for with my money, and I'm asking you to leave immediately. My parents stood my father, placing a protective hand on my shoulder. "I think it's best if we all take some time to cool down," he suggested. "An excellent idea," my mother agreed, gathering her purse. "Eva, we'll call you tomorrow, sweetheart." As my parents headed toward the door, the Coldwells remained firmly seated. Marcus looked panicked. "Eva, you're embarrassing everyone," he hissed. "This isn't how adults handle disagreements." "No, adults don't conspire to steal their spouse's investments," I retorted. "Apparently, I'm the only adult in this marriage." Slowly, reluctantly, Rachel and Douglas stood. "We should go," Rachel murmured to her parents. "This isn't the right time." Barbara rose with glacial dignity. "Well, I never. In all my years, I've never been spoken to this way." "Perhaps it's overdue," I replied coldly. As the Coldwells moved toward the door, Richard paused beside me. "This isn't over, Eva. The house is legally in Marcus's name and by extension under family purview. We'll be discussing next steps tomorrow at the family meeting." "There won't be any next steps cut," I said firmly, "and you can have your family meetings without me from now on." Richard's voice lowered menacingly. "Don't make an enemy of me, Eva. The Coldwells have considerable influence in Boston. It would be unfortunate if your little design business suddenly lost clients." The threat hung in the air between us. Before I could respond, Marcus intervened. "Dad, that's enough. Let's all just go home and cool off." Richard's eyebrows shot up. "Go home. This is your home, son. Are you letting your wife evict you from your own property?" Marcus looked stricken, caught between loyalties. I could see the moment his spine dissolved. "Maybe I should stay with you guys tonight," he said to his parents. "Give Eva some space." The betrayal felt physical, like a slap across the face. "Fine," I said, my voice breaking slightly. "Go with them. You've clearly chosen your side." As the Coldwell family gathered on my front lawn, neighbours began peering out their windows at the commotion. Barbara was gesturing dramatically, while Richard spoke intensely to Marcus. My humiliation was now a public spectacle. "Eva, what can I do?" Alicia asked, she and James, the only guests remaining. "Nothing right now," I replied, fighting back tears. "I just need some time to think." After assuring them I would be okay alone, I watched my last supporters drive away. Through the gathering darkness, I could see the Coldwells still conferring on the sidewalk. With a decisive movement, I stepped back inside and locked the door. Alone in the entryway of what should have been my dream home, I finally allowed the tears to fall. My birthday cake sat untouched in the dining room, surrounded by half-eaten meals and abandoned champagne glasses. The carefully planned celebration had transformed into a nightmare of betrayal. After a few minutes of allowing myself to cry, I wiped my eyes and straightened my shoulders. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Marcus began calling my cell phone repeatedly, but I silenced it. Instead, I called the one person I knew would give me honest advice, my law school roommate Julia, who now specialized in real estate law. "I need your help," I said when she answered. "And I need it immediately." Yes. I slept little that night, my mind racing with fears, plans, and strategies. By morning, I had transformed our dining room into a war room with legal pads covered in notes and my laptop open to property law websites. Julia had been a godsend, talking me through my options for nearly 2 hours. "First thing tomorrow, you need to get a copy of all the closing documents," she advised. "I want to see exactly what was signed and by whom." After a restless night, I drove to the Registry of Deeds when it opened at 8 a.m. The clerk was helpful if confused by my urgency. As I suspected, the deed showed only Marcus's name, with funds coming from the Caldwell Family Trust, rather than our joint account. "Was there any filing error?" I asked desperately. "Any technical issue with the paperwork?" The clerk checked thoroughly. "Actually, yes. There's a discrepancy between the property description in the deed and the actual property boundaries. It's a minor issue, but it means the deed hasn't been properly recorded yet." This small technicality became my first ray of hope. Over the next few days, I consulted with 3 different lawyers, each offering a slightly different perspective. The consensus was clear: I needed evidence of my financial contribution and any promises Marcus had made regarding joint ownership. Thankfully, I had kept meticulous financial records. I had emails from Marcus confirming our agreement about putting both names on the deed. I had text messages discussing our joint purchase. Most importantly, I had bank statements showing the transfer of my savings for the down payment, a transaction I had labelled "House Down Payment, Our Dream Home." While gathering evidence, I also changed the locks on the house. Marcus had taken his house key when he left with his parents, and I couldn't risk the Coldwells accessing the property in my absence. I also installed a simple security camera system recording the front and back entrances. These precautions proved prescient when 3 days after the birthday disaster, the Caldwells showed up unannounced. The security camera captured Richard trying his key in the front door, then ringing the bell repeatedly when it didn't work. I watched the footage from my office where I was on a conference call with a client and didn't answer. That evening, Marcus called for the 20th time. Finally, I answered. "Eva, this has gone far enough," he said, his voice a mixture of anger and pleading. "You changed the locks. My father is furious." "Your father has no right to access my home," I replied calmly. "Neither do you until we resolve this situation." "It's my house too," he protested. "My name is on the deed." "A deed that was improperly filed based on fraudulent pretenses," I countered. "I've been doing my research, Marcus. What your family attempted is called undue influence and possible fraud." His voice lowered. "Eva, please. You're making this into something ugly. We can work this out as a family. That's exactly the problem. Your idea of family seems to exclude me unless I'm contributing financially without having any actual rights." "That's not true. My parents just have certain expectations about family properties." "Well, I have certain expectations about husbands not lying to their wives about home ownership." The conversation deteriorated from there. By the end, Marcus was threatening legal action and I was inviting him to try. When I hung up, I felt drained but resolute. The next day, I received an email from Richard's lawyer formally requesting that I cease unauthorized occupation of Caldwell family property. I forwarded it directly to Julia, who responded with a detailed letter citing my substantial financial contribution, the verbal agreement for joint ownership, and the technical error in the deed filing. While this legal chess game unfolded, I didn't put my life on hold. I continued meeting with clients, taking on new design projects, and even began small renovation tasks around the house. I painted the main bathroom, replaced cabinet hardware in the kitchen, and planted flowers in the front garden. Each small improvement reinforced my claim to the space. My interior design business, rather than suffering from my divided attention, actually thrived. Word had somehow spread about my situation. I suspected Alicia had mentioned it to a few key people, and several women in similar circumstances sought me out for consultations. My ex tried to claim our renovation increased the house value, so he deserved more in the divorce, one new client confided. "I heard you know how to stand your ground." While my professional life flourished, Marcus's began to show cracks. He had been staying with his parents, an arrangement that was wearing thin, according to Rachel, who had surprisingly reached out to me. "He's miserable," she reported during a secretive coffee meeting. "Mum and Dad are treating him like a teenager with a curfew. Dad second guesses all his business decisions, and Mum keeps setting him up on dates with more suitable women, even though you two aren't even separated officially." "They're trying to replace me already," I asked, surprised, despite everything. Rachel looked uncomfortable. "They never thought you were the right fit. Too independent, not from the right background. I shouldn't tell you this, but they tried to talk him out of marrying you." This revelation stung, but also confirmed what I'd suspected. "And now they're pressuring him to file for divorce and evict you. Dad has the family lawyers drawing up papers." This information proved invaluable. When formal divorce papers arrived the following week, I was prepared. My legal team, which had grown to include a divorce attorney and a forensic accountant, immediately filed a countersuit, including a claim for my contribution to the house and allegations of financial manipulation. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. While organizing files on our shared cloud storage, looking for additional evidence of our house hunting journey, I discovered an email folder Marcus had forgotten to restrict. Inside were dozens of exchanges between him and his father dating back months before our house purchase. The property transfer strategy worked with Rachel and Douglas, Richard had written in one email. "Once the deed is in the family trust's name, Eva will have no choice but to accept the arrangement. Better to ask forgiveness than permission in these matters." Another email outlined a step-by-step plan. 1. Encourage Eva to contribute maximum down payment from her savings. To use trust funds for your portion, but keep this confidential until closing. Ensure deed is in your name, only citing her self-employment as reason for mortgage qualification. 4. After closing, reveal family property expectations. Reading these calculated instructions made me physically ill. The man I had loved and trusted had been plotting against me for months under his father's direction. The betrayal was even deeper than I had imagined. Armed with this damning evidence, my lawyers sent a comprehensive settlement proposal. I would retain full ownership of the house, in exchange for not pursuing fraud charges or making the emails public, which would certainly damage the Caldwell family's reputation in Boston business circles. The response came swiftly. Richard Caldwell himself appeared at my door alone. "You've misunderstood the situation," he began when I reluctantly let him in. "I've misunderstood nothing," I replied, handing him copies of his own emails. "I understand perfectly that you and your son conspired to essentially steal my life savings and my home." His face reddened as he scanned the documents. These were private family communications. "About defrauding me," I pointed out. "Not exactly protected correspondence." For the first time since I'd known him, Richard Caldwell looked uncertain. "What do you want?" "Exactly what my lawyers outlined. Full ownership of this house transferred to my name alone, a reimbursement of legal fees, and a written agreement that neither you nor any Caldwell family member will interfere with my property or my business in the future." He stared at me for a long moment. "You won't last a month in this house without Marcus's income. The maintenance alone on a property this age..." "I've already received 3 offers to showcase my renovation work in design magazines," I interrupted. "This house will become the centerpiece of my expanded business. I'll do just fine." After more posturing and threats, Richard finally admitted defeat. "I'll have my lawyers draw up the papers, but Marcus wants his personal belongings. He can schedule a time to collect them with supervision." Richard's parting shot came as he reached the door. "You've made an enemy of the Caldwell family, Eva. Boston is a small city in certain circles." I met his gaze steadily. "And I've made many friends by standing up to bullies. We'll see which serves me better in the long run." The legal proceedings took another 2 months to finalize. Marcus refused to meet with me, directly communicating only through lawyers. I learned from Rachel that he had taken a position in the family company's Chicago office, effectively removing himself from Boston and our shared past. The day my lawyer called to confirm that the house was officially solely in my name was the first time I truly exhaled in 6 months. That evening, I opened a bottle of champagne, the one Barbara had brought to my disastrous birthday dinner, which had remained in my refrigerator untouched. It tasted like victory. 6 months after my notorious birthday, I stood in the center of my completely transformed living room. The original hardwood floors gleamed with a custom stain I had developed. The walls were painted a warm grey that highlighted the Tudor architectural details, and the fireplace had been restored to its original glory, with hand-painted tiles I'd commissioned from a local artist. The journey to this moment had been arduous, but empowering. After the legal battle ended, with the house officially in my name, I had thrown myself into renovation with a passion born of reclamation. Each wall I painted, each fixture I replaced, each design choice I made was an act of healing, of making this space truly mine. My interior design business had not only survived the turmoil, but thrived in unexpected ways. The story of my battle with the Caldwells had circulated in certain circles, positioning me as a designer who understood the emotional significance of home and personal space. I had gained several high-profile clients, specifically because they admired my determination. "You transformed not just your house, but your life," one client commented. "That's the kind of vision I want for my space too." I had also launched a series of workshops called Design Your Liberation, helping women who had emerged from controlling relationships create homes that expressed their newfound independence. The waiting list for these sessions grew longer each month. The legal settlement had included not just the house, but also a non-disparagement clause that prevented the Caldwells from interfering with my business. Richard had initially balked at this requirement, but faced with the evidence of his manipulative emails, he had eventually conceded. My relationship with Marcus had ended with the final stroke of a pen on our divorce papers. He had relocated permanently to Chicago, where I heard through mutual friends that he was dating the daughter of one of his father's business associates. The pattern continued, it seemed. Surprisingly, my most unexpected ally throughout the ordeal had been Rachel Marcus's sister. After our initial secret coffee meeting, she had continued to provide information and support, eventually confessing that she too had experienced her parents' controlling behavior regarding her own marriage and home. "They did the same thing to Douglas and me," she admitted during one of our now regular lunch dates. "We didn't fight it like you did. Sometimes I wish we had." Her friendship had become valuable to me, a connection to my past that wasn't tainted with bitterness. Through her, I learnt that Barbara had been furious about losing control of a family property, while Richard had been more concerned about the potential damage to the Caldwell reputation if the story got out. "Dad actually respects you now in a weird way," Rachel told me. "He says you're a formidable opponent." I had laughed at that. I never wanted to be his opponent. I just wanted to be treated with respect. The emotional healing had taken longer than the legal resolution. There were nights I woke up angry, replaying conversations, and wondering how I had missed the signs. There were days when the betrayal felt fresh all over again, when I discovered another instance of Marcus deferring to his parents at my expense. My own parents had been my rock throughout the process. They had offered financial support, which I had gratefully declined, emotional comfort, and practical help with the house renovations. My father, despite his academic background, had revealed surprising skills with a paintbrush and power tools. "I'm so proud of you, Ava," my mother told me one evening as we sat on my new porch swing. "You stood up for yourself when it would have been easier to give in." My support network had expanded beyond family. Alicia had been unwavering in her friendship, organising a reclamation party when the house officially became mine. My lawyers had become friends and advocates. New connections formed through my workshops created a community of women who understood personal reinvention. As the 1-year anniversary of my fateful birthday approached, I decided to reclaim that date as well. Instead of a birthday party, I planned a rebirth day celebration, inviting only those who had supported me through the challenging year. The guest list was smaller than my previous birthday, but filled with genuine connections. My parents Alicia and James Julia and her husband Rachel, who came without Douglas, and several new friends I had made through my workshops and expanded business. We gathered in my beautifully renovated home, now featured in 2 design magazines and scheduled for a home tour fundraiser. Over dinner at the same table where the Caldwells had attempted to claim my home, we shared stories of challenges overcome and lessons learned. "To Eva," my father toasted, raising his glass, "who taught us all that the foundation of a true home isn't built of wood and stone, but of courage and self-respect." As glasses clinked around the table, I felt a profound sense of peace. The house that had almost been taken from me had become more than just my home. It was my sanctuary, my canvas, my statement of independence. Later that evening, as the party wound down and guests began to leave, Rachel lingered behind. "I have something for you," she said, handing me a small wrapped package. "It's not from my parents, they don't know I'm here. It's from me." Inside the box was a vintage key on an elegant silver chain. "It's a Victorian house key I found at an antique market," she explained. "I thought it could be a symbol. You know of how you found the key to standing up for yourself, and in doing so, showed me that I might be able to do the same someday." I hugged her tightly, this unexpected sister who had emerged from the wreckage of my marriage. "Anytime you're ready, I'll help you find your own key." After everyone had left, I walked through my house alone, touching the walls, the door frames, the countertops I had selected. In each room, I had exorcised the memory of betrayal and replaced it with evidence of my own capability. The master bedroom, once a space I had shared with Marcus, was now my personal retreat, decorated in soothing blues and soft textures. The kitchen, where I had prepared my ill-fated birthday dinner, now featured custom cabinetry and the professional-grade stove I had always wanted. The dining room site of the Caldwell takeover attempt now hosted my design client meetings and workshops. I had not only reclaimed my house, but had transformed it into something far more meaningful than I had originally envisioned. It wasn't just a showcase for my design skills, it was physical proof of my resilience. As I stood in the bay window of my living room looking out at the garden I had planted in the spring, I reflected on the painful lesson the Caldwells had unintentionally taught me. True ownership comes not just from legal documents, but from the courage to stand up for what is rightfully yours. The house keys I wore on a bracelet jangled softly as I turned to survey my domain. This was my house, my achievement, my new beginning, and no one could ever take it away from me again. I had lost a husband and his family, but I had gained something far more valuable, the unshakable knowledge of my own strength and worth. In fighting for my home, I had found my true self, and that was a foundation that could never be claimed by anyone else. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever had to stand up for yourself against people who tried to take what was rightfully yours, share your experience in the comments below. How did you handle it? What did you learn? Don't forget to like and subscribe. If this story resonated with you, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they too have the strength to stand their ground. Remember, sometimes losing what you thought you wanted leads to gaining what you truly need.